Hi, it's your $2 Tuesday movie critic here today with another Oscar nominated movie. The name of this movie is The Darkest Hour. And may I just say, I love this movie. I really did. So, and it wasn't because I'm a history buff or because I have a thing for Winston Churchill or anything like that. I honestly remember learning a little bit about the European political system. You know that there is a prime minister, there is of course the monarchy, and then there is parliament. And so the darkest hour is about the prime minister Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, and particularly they talk about when he first comes to power as the prime minister, when he takes over for Chamberlain. And I try not to go too much into the movie for those of you that haven't seen it. But I have to say the movie did an excellent job of depicting Winston Churchill as this three-dimensional guy. When I initially saw him as a kid, seeing a picture of him, he actually reminded me of a bulldog with the cheeks and the sourpuss type face. And this movie, you get to see him in so many different ways, and it's over a short time span because it begins around the time of, as Hitler is basically going through World War II and destroying and conquering countries. You know history, you know a lot of this stuff, but what this movie does is it pulls back the curtain so you can actually see what's happening in the background with all these powerful people that are supposed to be making decisions about the people themselves, about the people of Britain, of the UK. And it is tough. And you get to see him and all these different moods, emotions, things going on. I mean, it has very light comedy, very cool comedy. There was one scene that was just too much. And without saying too much about it, I was just go there. It was so funny. But it was and it had some very dark moments too. Hence the title, because this is what was considered the darkest hour because he is trying to make a decision for an entire country, and in some ways an entire kingdom that has put their trust in him to a certain degree because the people that have put him in this position want to also take him out. It is kind of odd how that happens. But this was an excellent movie. I really enjoyed it. Now, this movie is rated PG-13. It is a drama. It is drama at its finest, I have to say. There was no real mystery to it, especially if you read your history book, world history, European history. You probably know a lot of this stuff, but a lot of the stuff that you learn about Winston Churchill himself, I think you find from this movie. Uh, Full disclosure, I have to say I am very biased since I saw this movie. I've only seen it once. I would love to see it again just to go and see what I missed the first time. But I pay very close attention. It's one of those movies that grabs your attention. You don't have to try to look at it or try to understand it. It's very simplistic, but at the same time, it goes through all the nuances and the different situations Churchill finds himself in during this time of war. And it also mentions Dunkirk and ties that into it. And I actually, it's more interesting to hear him and his counterparts talk about Dunkirk than it was to watch the movie of Dunkirk. And that's just me. Okay, so anyway, I liked pretty much everything about this movie. Like I said, it's dramatic movie or drama at its finest to me. And I will watch it again and probably again. It was just that good. The dislikes about it, I honestly didn't have any dislikes. I liked the way it started. I liked the way it kind of like gave not only insight on what Churchill was going through, dealing with the rest of whole political front. It also gave the relationship that he had with the king, and it also gave a bit of a relationship he had with his family, particularly he and his wife, which had a really beautiful relationship. People sort of, and I want to say people, Americans sort of sometimes depict the British as very stiff upper crust, and that wasn't what you see at all in this movie. It was very sweet, very sentimental in some cases, but at the same time you saw his tough side and his side where very brash and get out of my way sort of thing going on. So you get to see him in different moods, different situations. Cliche things. I honestly didn't see anything. I mean, it was a drama, and it kind of like had the thing where there was turmoil, there was good, there was bad, but it told the story as truthfully as it could. It didn't pull on the strings, the dramatic strings, too much. I don't think it really came off as telling the story, and like I said, pulling back the curtain so you could not just see what was happening or what we had already known from history books, but also what was happening with these people behind the scenes. And it's quite interesting, very, very interesting. Something that I think everyone should see. And then my final recommendation is to see this movie. I think even it's PG-13. I think parents should see this movie with their kids. It is a bit, even though it's a colored movie, it does dim more towards the black and white to the point where, some kids, unless they're history buffs, they probably wouldn't be interested in it. But, it is something that I think that history teachers would probably want to show their kids to sort of like get, because a lot of times when we learn about history in school, when I say we as kids, when I was a kid, what we learn about is the situation, who was in the situation, what happened, and everything like that. We don't get to see the human side of it all the time. And I think that's important. And what you get to see in this movie is the human side of it. And it's an excellent movie. Honestly, for me, I think so far it's the best picture that I have seen in the best picture nomination. So I would vote for that one. That is me though. All right. This movie is also up. Darkest Hour is also up for Best Director. I don't know exactly how they look at director. Maybe they look at how well the movie did, or maybe they get backstories about the director. I have no idea. It's up against quite a few good movies, but it holds its own. It totally holds its own. It's the best dramatic movie I have seen thus far in this category. Best actor, yes, there's no doubt about it, because he's up against Gary Oldman. He and I didn't ever see or hear of Churchill, so I can't say he has his mannerisms down to anything like that, because I don't know. All I saw was a picture of him. So from that, but bringing Churchill to life, the picture, the likability, the similarities in their facial features is awesome. Just so great. And then bringing him to life to people that have really only seen him from a picture like myself. They did such a great job with that. So yeah, and based on who else, a couple of these movies I haven't seen, so I can't say about them. But the one that I did see, with Daniel Kaluuya, and I know I'm messing up his name, and I really apologize, sir. Get Out. Yes. I mean, they both did wonderful jobs because I like both movies, and I'll go over the other one later on in one of my other posts. It is up for Best Cinematography, which I'm going to give it to it. It, again, had that same feel of that time period where you get the darkness of it, but also the lightness of it when they were taking pictures, as far as the photographers when they were trying to speak to Winston Churchill in certain aspects, the freeze frame. I thought that was really cool the way they did that. Whether it was the best cinematography, I wouldn't know, because I wouldn't know based on besides the others. I did not see Blade Runner, but I did see Mudbound, and I did see The Shape of Water. And I honestly don't know what they look for as far as cinematography, if they only just look at how this movie is portrayed, the colors, the background scheme, everything like that. For that, yeah, I think it did a great job with those things. So, two old school comparisons that I have for that is one, Malcolm X. Now, this movie came out, oh my gosh, back in 1992. Now, it starred Denzel Washington and Spike Lee. This movie tells the story of Malcolm X. Uh, and it goes a bit deeper than the movie of The Darkest Hour, because The Darkest Hour only tells about Winston Churchill from that time period of the beginnings of World War II, as it was expanding. Malcolm X tells pretty much his entire adult life story and a little bit after when he's assassinated. So this was an excellent movie. And you learn so much about Malcolm X. Again, because before seeing this movie, a lot of people only saw him as an activist, and some of them considered him a militant type activist, and that was more of a troublemaker than actual, and that was always going against Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. And you get to see that was not the case. That was actually just the opposite. They were sometimes on different spectrums of the activist lens, but they had a lot in common. And this movie lets you see that, and you get to see his life story. And I think it's a really good movie, excellent movie, as a matter of fact. Also, the other movie that I compared this to, and this was not necessarily a old school movie because it came out back in 2010, but was The King's Speech. Now this stars Colin Firth, and this movie I really enjoyed it because it tells the story about Prince Albert, who had a speech impediment, and a lot of people knew about, but mainly it was the people in his circle, and those people that heard him speak, and they were not very flattering about it. And but you get to see, not only doesn't just draw on his speech only, but also his life, and how important it was for him to be king, and how seriously he took this position, and also the relationship between he and his wife, and the relationship between he and his therapist. I really enjoyed this movie. I love Colin Firth movies, I have to say, but this movie was done exceptionally well. I had before only seen him in comedies, and so this was from the Bridget Jones movies. So this was a good turn for me to see him in this drama and be so serious, but at the same time show almost like a wicked sense of humor, or some would say maybe dry, but it was a really good movie. So, and it kind of like goes in the same way that The Darkest Hour goes, where it only shows his life for a certain period of time. And this, funnily enough, are quite a coincidence that this movie talks around the same aspects during World War II, when Hitler was trying to take over. So those are my two old school movies that I compared to. You may have something else, so let me know down at the bottom of the screen, and I will see you next time.